Preemptive play and counterplay. Note, neutral/positioning is a bit of a prerequisite. This article is a second tier. If you have not already read or watched my previous video, I'll link that in the description below. Preemptive play and counterplay. These are weird. A discussion on and vocabulary for player versus player neutral interactions in SSBM. The usefulness of a preemptive play slash counterplay model is best illustrated by delineating the weakness in more generalized vocabulary. Consider the worn dichotomy of aggro and campy playstyles. When you get down to it, descriptions of aggro/campy provide very little usable information and is often little more than misleading. Is dash dancing campy if done for 5 seconds, but aggressive if it's only done for 2 seconds? If Falco repeatedly auto-cancel bears in front of your dash dance, is that aggro or is it campy? Is a short hop dare in place at the edge of your dash dance range aggro or campy? Is an approaching laser followed by a dash back aggro or campy? The more specific you get, the less meaning the words have. The FGC footsies model of poke, whiff punish, movement is far more specific than aggro/campy and is a great starting point to understanding fighting game mechanics. But the poke, whiff punish, movement model also runs into ambiguity, and its usefulness runs out when looking at more complicated situations, particularly those in which frame advantage or situational move mechanics make their use multi-layered. It's not so much that you can't consider a CC grab or a shield drop bear or even a preemptive full hop dare a whiff punish, rather, whiff punish isn't the best descriptor. Because their game is relatively simple at its core, Street Fighter players can make do by introducing additional vocabulary like counter pokes, anti-airs, command grabs, etc., terms that correspond exactly to the conscious design and use of the move, a luxury that Melee simply doesn't enjoy. At the heart of it, Melee is too speedy and complex for either of these models to suffice. Sooner than later, specifics outgrow their usefulness and you start trying to fit an organic process to a foreign model at the cost rather than at the service of understanding. For this reason, I propose an alternate vernacular built specifically to handle a greater depth of learning and description. This vernacular is organized around the interplay between preemptive play and counterplay. Preemptive play, PEP, can be understood as intending to land a hit or otherwise act preemptively. Counterplay can be understood as looking to punish something. This model is derived from two principles by which it overcomes the weaknesses of aggro/campy and poke, whiff, punish movement while profiting from their respective utility. 1. Specifics are more powerful than trends. This is the strength of poke, whiff punish movement and the weakness of aggro/campy. 2. Understanding why moves are being used is more important than the identity of the moves themselves. This is the strength of aggro/campy and the weakness of poke, whiff punish movement. The form that these intentions take will vary, and there is some gray area between the two, but nothing destructive or distracting. It is a clean, effective, and flexible structure. Let's look at these concepts a bit closer. Preemptive play can range from shuffle attacks to defensive zoning tools. Its defining characteristic is that it is preemptive and its intention is to initiate a play in this moment. Counterplay can include deep to shallow dash dances, run-up shields, CC's full hops, runaway lasers, etc. Counterplay is defined by what it intends to punish in a future movement, usually on reaction. Preemptive play can lose to counterplay in the same way that pokes generally lose to whiff punishes, but not uniformly. Some preemptive play is safe versus some counterplay. For example, a shallow zoning aerial is technically a preemptive play poke, but its primary purpose is to initiate in order to gain or keep space, not to start a combo. Thus, a deep dash dance or crouch cancel intended to counterplay a deep aerial does not directly win against a preemptive shallow aerial. Similarly, a close dash dance counterplay will beat shallow attacks, but lose to, or at least drop the opportunity to counter, deep preemptive play. Consider how a player can take center stage with an attack, an empty wave dash, or even with a run-up shield, and all of which could require different punishes. In this way, a player has to prepare for not just what the opponent will do, but how they intend to do it. For this reason, much counterplay is as specific in its intention as preemptive play. An opponent that is committed to counterplay is waiting to react to something specific, but they aren't robots. They're humans with human reaction times. They can't keep track of every option at once. If you do something unexpected, then they can't punish you immediately. That being said, there are two main ways to color these interactions and avoid having to guess as frequently. Remember, maximizing reward while minimizing risk wins tournaments. Both of these methods are more fully understood as development within a preemptive play and counterplay context. 1. Option coverage. In order to cover multiple options, players have to develop tactics or use a sequence of moves designed to do so. This is why Sheik players will initiate with a preemptive play zoning F-tilt, but hold down during its end lag, or Falco players will preemptively laser, then jab, and then dash back. These sequences are favorable against multiple options, including common counterplay. Specifically designed option coverage is the only way around tunnel vision and reaction times in neutral. It's obviously strong, but it has its limits. It's very rare for a tactic to cover every option. Additionally, any given player will have only internalized so many tactics. 2. Staggered punishes. Preemptive play and counterplay are most useful in neutral situations when both players have access to many unreactable options. When one character has significant frame advantage, then it is more consistent and advantageous to use what I call staggered punishes. In a staggered punish, you recognize frame advantage and make an immediate gut judgment whether your next punish is solid or not. At that point, you either take the punish or dash dance and wait to reactively punish what they do next. Let's say, for example, that Fox nairs in front of Puff. A mediocre Puff will try to grab every time, but a better Puff will recognize when the grab punish isn't guaranteed and will instead use the nair's landing lag as a sort of buffer in order to react to or read and punish what Fox does after the nair. Examples being like, well, maybe he'll get into examples, but like Foxes might whiff a nair and then spot dodge, but if you're not close enough to just punish the nair, wait and punish the spot dodge, or punish the up tilt, or whatever else comes next. However, if you passively dash dance too often, then you can drop this opportunity to dash aways or immediate attacks. By frequently introducing a 50-50 between attacking or reacting, staggered punishes are obviously related to the preemptive play and counterplay model. The significant distinction is that while in a purer neutral, you may have to interpret your opponent's behavior and guess their intention. A staggered punish allows you to make those decisions based on frame advantage and character states. That being said, I don't think that you should worry too much about the mix-up part of it, at least not initially. You should just prioritize keeping up on it until such time as you're sufficiently practiced to develop that decision-making. Internalizing staggered punishes is extremely gratifying. Getting into the flow of them is identifiable with Neo mode. Neutral and punish game blend together, and you start to see and feel the logic of the game. This is very true, and this is super hard, but this is the kind of thing that once you are very much feeling it, this is the kind of thing that is why Melee becomes so much more fun the more you improve at it. Case study. Leffen versus HBox at Gommel, game 1. At the time I did it, I used the word initiation instead of preemptive play. Exact same concept. Flow feedback. Oh, rest in peace. Moment of silence. Tragic. Using it. A solid matchup game plan should have preemptive play tools to initiate successfully against common counterplay strats, at least a positive expected value if not winning. Preemptive play tools versus common preemptive plays. Tools to sheesh! God damn, they made reading way too hard. From the top. A solid matchup game plan should have preemptive play tools to initiate successfully against common counterplay strats, preemptive play tools versus common preemptive plays, tools to counterplay common preemptive play, and tools to counterplay common counterplay strats. That sounds like a lot, but it's actually quite manageable. Additionally, the exercise can reveal and patch foundational holes in your game plan. But the biggest advantage to examining all 4 thoroughly is that you will very quickly notice patterns that are true to the game's mechanics across matchups. With familiarity, those patterns make it much easier to recognize and crack an opponent's strategy in real time. What does this look like? Preemptive play versus preemptive play, most often identified as scuffles. You mean to initiate and win despite the other player also initiating preemptively. This requires better spacing, move selection, or situational awareness. Examples: in close range, Falco short hop laser versus Puff short hop bear. Whoever jumps first wins. Puff can also space so that the bear will beat laser and up tilt. Spacey's using up tilt to try and trade with or beat Captain Falcon's aerials. Preemptive play versus counterplay, most often identified as tactics. You mean to initiate preemptively and win despite counterplay. This requires you to either identify and subvert the counterplay method or to have a tactic that beats multiple options. Examples: a deep aerial that starts as Captain Falcon dashes away. Captain Falcon can't turn around and whiff punish. He has to keep running, get hit, or shield. Holding down versus the A move so that if it's punished lightly, you can immediately ASDI down and grab. Counterplay versus preemptive play, most often identified as dash dancing or whiff punishing. You mean to scout out and punish an attack. This requires you to space outside of the threat, but close enough to punish an overextension. Examples: dashing outside of an attack's range, then grabbing it. Full hopping on platforms, then falling through with an attack on a whiffed aerial. Counterplay versus counterplay, most often identified as a bait or disrespect. You mean to tease out and reactively punish a failed attempt to punish. Examples: spacing outside of a shield grab and punishing, walking forward and down smashing. Another thing that would come into this, which is the same as spacing outside of a shield grab and punishing, would be like doing a short hop waveland back and they try to whiff punish an aerial with a grab, like they're dash dancing, you short hop waveland back. They whiff their grab because you didn't actually aerial, because you counterplayed their counterplay, and then you get to punish it. Note how all of these ideas are very familiar and are very complementary. All top players frequently and deliberately commit to all of these in order to punish tendencies and cut the right corners at the right times. Note too how they are complicated but not overwhelmed by the addition of option coverage, staggered punishes, and even positioning. They're still lush descriptors / mental signposts even at high specificity / complexity. Conclusion. The usefulness of this vocabulary, as demonstrated in the case study linked above, isn't to put arbitrary labels on things. Rather, it's to provide a succinct and more relevant vocabulary that better identifies how and why we make decisions so that we can recognize patterns faster and improve that decision making. If these patterns are recognized correctly, then you can quickly, effectively, and safely adapt your game plan to harshly exploit any imbalance. It's a methodology for attacking a player's understanding, and I'd be hard-pressed to locate a more core fighting game principle than that. Cool. Please like and subscribe. Please subscribe to my channel so I can get to 100 subscribers so that I can change my YouTube channel from youtube.com/nerfguydude to something else, because I'm not nerfguydude, I'm Zamu. Please, thanks. You can unsubscribe after I hit 100 subs and change my title. Hope you found it helpful.